I am Liz Faircloth.
I am Andresa Guidelli, and this is the Earn and Invest podcast.
When it comes to business or entrepreneurship or money, my history has not been to see things in terms of gender. After all, I was brought up by a successful single mother who was a professional businesswoman who eventually started an accounting firm. She even owned her own real estate, several properties. But that, looking back, was more my stepfather's influence. Would she have done it without him? My guests today have created both a community and a podcast centered around a woman's place in the real estate world. What are the hurdles today in 2022? As I've said in previous podcast episodes, you might think that this topic doesn't pertain to you. Maybe you're a man or have no interest in real estate. I imagine it was the farthest thing from my father's mind when he died at the age of 40 and left behind a wife and 3 children. For you, I have one simple question. What about the women in your life? Liz Faircloth and Andresa Guidelli are the proud co-founders of the Real Estate InvestHER, that's INVESTHER community, a platform to empower women to live a financially free and balanced life through meetups across the US and Canada, and an online community and membership that offers accountability and mentorship for women to take their businesses to the next level. They are also the co-hosts of the Real Estate InvestHER Show, a podcast providing straight talk strategies along with inspiration from successful women who share their journey. Liz and Andresa, welcome to Earn and Invest. Liz, I want to start with you. We're going to spend the vast majority of this show talking about women in real estate. Many personal finance podcast listeners are, frankly, middle-aged men. Why should they care? And do men listen to your podcast and join your community?
Hi, Doc. Thank you so much for having us on today. Those are 2 great questions to jump into. First, I'll take the second one and then I'll answer the first one. Yes, men do listen to our show, follow us, and our mission is to empower women to live a financially free and balanced life. But men are part of that mission, a big part of it in a lot of ways, right? So, so now I'll answer the first question. So why should men care? You know, I forget the quote exactly, but it went something like this: when you are someone that is only focused on your own kind of circle, then you're going to miss supporting everyone else. It's much more eloquently said, but men have such a great opportunity to be an ally for empowering women to live a financially free and balanced life. Over 50%, right, of the population is men and 50% women. So men have women in their lives, spouses, children, aunts, mothers. I mean, we can make the long list, right? So there's no man that's living in a vacuum that doesn't know any women and doesn't have any close women in their lives. So I think it's incredibly important. And I think a lot of men do care about this topic more than we sometimes think about. So I just would say that it's incredibly important, and they are allies in many ways together with us on our mission.
And for us, it's also a social responsibility, right? When we started the Real Estate Investor community, we didn't want to just to be a Facebook group where women could come and chat and have conversations. We want to really push the boundary here. For us, it's a social responsibility to teach women, to encourage them to step into financial independency. So it will lead to breaking a cycle of the future next generations. That's our ultimate goal. And how can we do that in a different way? It's not just about getting all the knowledge in terms of real estate, but also how they can run a business as a business. How can they take care of themselves? Because we have seen so many burnout people around us. And how does it look like to live life on our own terms, build generational wealth on our own terms? So we really stand for all those 3 important pillars.
Andresa, when we talk about the InvestHER community, we're really talking about your endpoint. Let's go back to your beginnings. Before moving to the US, you completed an MBA program. And after arriving a master's, why so much education for someone who eventually would become a real estate investor?
I didn't know better. I really didn't, right? I grew up, my dad passed away at the age 40, left my mom and I, 3 kids. And at that moment, I made a conscious or unconscious decision that I really needed to raise the bar for myself and for my sisters. I didn't want to just to stay playing small. So how did that look like? We didn't have any financial mean for me to go even to college, right? I figured it out. I worked 2 jobs. I got scholarships throughout. And when I came to the US after my second master's, the goal was to get the knowledge, go back, find a great job, work for a corporate multinational company. And that was it. That's all I knew. And while I was working here, I took a door-to-door sales job because I didn't have sales experience. And during that internship, my manager pushed me this small, little, tiny purple book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad when I asked him about a sales book. And then I said, what is this? He's like, you're going to read it this weekend. We're going to have a meeting about this next week. I'm sorry. And then I said, well, I need a sales book because if I sell more, you are going to make more. I make more, you make more. He's like, no, you're going to be an entrepreneur and you need to read this book now. And then when I read that book during that weekend, I was like, there's an entire world that I don't even know about. Cash flow. What is that? To me, was like owning multiple houses. Are you kidding? Is that even possible? Is that how people do? So it really opened up a completely new world to me. And I was like, oh gosh, now I don't want to be an A student anymore. I want to be a C student anymore. And so and then my quote unquote straight journey started. And that's where I gained a lot of the entrepreneurial, the trainings that I've done that I didn't learn with my master's degree. Absolutely. They support me. They help me with a very strong foundation. But the nitty gritty that I learned doing door-to-door sales was really essential.
Liz, Robert Kiyosaki also threw you a curveball. Am I right in saying you were on your path to becoming a social worker?
So, in a lot of ways, similar in when your head gets turned to things that you never even knew before. So I was on a path. I was getting my degree in social work. And interestingly enough, during my master's degree, I actually wrote a business plan to create a women's center to help women that had mental illness. So, it's funny how that was 20 years ago. But anyway, while I was getting my degree, I wanted to open my own practice. So I wanted to open my own shingle, have a shingle in my office and open my own practice. And getting a master's degree in social work was the easiest and quickest way to do that beyond getting your PhD. So that was my path. That was my focus. I went straight on from college because I was that focused. I didn't even get a job in social work. I just knew I wanted to open my own practice and help people. So during that experience, I was working also with my brother-in-law, doing presentations on different topics and helping college students, et cetera, with living their life, to the fullest. And during those conversations, he's just like, you got to read this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I was 21 and I said, I don't know why this would help me. I'm going to be a social worker. I'm going to open my own practice. And when I'm focused on something, that was my focus. And I read it and I was like, hold on, there's things in here that I've never even heard about. My 2 parents worked very hard, middle-class family, adore them dearly, but the conversation of passive income and entrepreneurship and building wealth were not conversations we had, right? So the essence of hard work, yes, but all those pieces, no. So, really turned my head and wanting more for my life. I knew I wanted to help people, but I said, well, let me think about this. And one of the things he talks about is sales. Getting a sales job. And I was really moved by real estate. And then I started reading a lot more than just that book. And I was like, wow, you can really transform buildings and make things better and make money doing it. So I just started reading and learning. And that's what opened my eyes to just that whole world and just got more and more passionate about it, more and more interested in it as I learned more.
Liz, both you and Andresa mentioned this idea of sales. How much of real estate is sales?
I think life is sales. I mean, beyond real estate, let's be honest, right? I mean, and sales is service, in my opinion. Sales is service. Sales is not selling someone something that they don't need. Sales is solving their problem. So, and I think that for my consulting world, when I worked about a decade in consulting, I was doing a lot of sales and I was selling a product and a service that met the company's needs. So I really learned the value of that. It is huge in real estate. It's huge in real estate investing, any part of real estate, but especially in investing. You're constantly positioning yourself with investors, you're positioning yourself with banks, the homeowners, with whomever you're influencing. So I always think of sales as influence. It's not just like literally selling a product. It's influencing people, creating win-wins, and just getting up, getting hit down. And we went around, my husband and I, for our first property. We literally went door to door, knocking on people's doors. People yelled at us. People said, "What are you doing?" I mean, this is what we knew. This is what we were taught in one of our workshops. So that's sales, and we could have just given up. But I think we knocked on like 50 doors over the course of 6 months. And someone said, "Yeah, let's talk."
Andresa, when I look at your story about building the InvestHER platform and podcast, I see that story, but I also see the story of two women who clearly became friends and then partners. Tell me how you guys met.
Well, we met through Bigger Pockets. Their platform was really the tool that connected both of us. I was doing a lot of rehabs in Philadelphia, and Liz and Matt were living in New Jersey at that time. We're looking for partners to expand the business. And they came down in one of the projects and we started a conversation. But something about that meeting made me really think about Liz differently. I felt that I already knew her from another life. Who knows? You have those connections, right? Mm-hmm. And we started a friendship first. We did not jump into a partnership. And that's something that we preach to a lot of people, that jump into partnerships very, very quick. We got to know each other very, very much. And we started a mastermind online with other women, nothing paid, just so we can meet each other once a month to support each other's businesses. And through that, you saw integrity, right? People showing up over and over and over again. And we met once a month to support each other's business as well. And we were like, okay, let's take it to the next level. And then we did our first project. Our first project was a pilot. We looked at our strengths, we divided and conquer, and it worked very well. And from that, we started scaling it. And then one day we were in a coffee shop and we were like, where other women are going to get the support that we need. Don't get me wrong, Bigger Pockets is a wonderful platform. We wanted to create a safe platform where women could raise their hand, not feel ashamed, to ask any questions and really get the support that they needed to move forward, or talk about different situations that are unique to women. When you give birth and what happens after that with your business, can you take your child to a job site, which happened several times. So we're like, we don't have one. So let's create one. We didn't have this master plan, but we really wanted to start with a podcast where we could interview other successful women and get to know their stories and their success. How did they achieve the life that they were living? And that's how we started with, I think, a $600 investment.
Liz, it's interesting because as I hear Andresa talk about Bigger Pockets, we are all fans of the Bigger Pockets platform. Yet, I believe you both saw that there were unique needs for you as women in the real estate field. Liz, you started the DeRosa Group with your husband in 2005, and since then you've scaled up to a $60 million real estate portfolio. Tell me, what has it been like just to be a woman in real estate during those years?
I've had various roles too, right? So I've worked full-time in our business. I started the business, worked full-time, worked part-time, worked strategically, kind of had all those different hats. I think women have an amazing advantage. I think women are amazing to begin with. I do see that. And they have an amazing advantage to stand out from the crowd. So that's just number one. The second point I want to make, though, there's all types of women. I mean, what the beauty of it is that we don't like to stereotype. There are women who are very direct and to the point. There's women who are very nurturing, and there are men who are nurturing, and there are men that are very direct and to the point. So just to pigeonhole women as this one type is just nonsense. I think women know how to get a lot done. And one of the things that we became so passionate about is women have a lot of hats, but in terms of just running the household and just, a lot of women still are, whether they're doing it or not, they're at the helm of a lot of pieces of their life. And we saw that as a strength, but it's also can weigh them down. So that was also part of a little bit of what we were so passionate about, is creating wealth on your own terms without feeling so drained to do it. And, we've seen since the onset of COVID, right? Women staying, the whole shift in schooling and homeschooling, and women have statistically felt the brunt of that more than men. And so these are all the reasons why we exist, right? So women have that safe space. I'll give you just another example of a real life situation. We have meetups across the country, 55 meetups. We started with one. Andresa and I ran it in Philadelphia, and then women started to ask if they can, join a meetup in their area. We're like, we can't get to Tennessee, but if you want to start one, that'll be great, So, so we have 55 now, where we, create these intimate circles of women that can give and get support in their local community. And I was at one of them. I like to go to the local ones. This is one of the ones in New Jersey when we started, and I was sitting there, and there was a few men there. And we welcome men to come to these meetings, of course, right? Our mission is to empower women, but men are certainly welcome. So there's literally 2 men. And there's about 35 women. Okay, just to give you some numbers. And the presenter was talking, explaining things. And they said, does anyone have any questions? So the 2 men proceeded to ask about 15 questions each. I counted. I know that because I counted. I was sitting there and I was really fuming. I was trying to remain calm. But I was fuming because I saw this happening. And then all the women didn't ask any questions. And I don't think any of them actually asked any questions. The presenter wrapped up, the meeting ended, and that was very telling. And so that is why we exist. So women feel comfortable, not just comfortable, but that there's a safe way that they can ask the questions and not feel like they're morons or not feel intimidated. Because statistically, whether people want to look at it or not, look at the studies that have been done in grad school. Look at the studies that have been done in schooling. When women or men are in classrooms, who's putting their hands up, who's not? These are not things that Andresa and I are making up or have created. It's literally just the way the world is right now. So that's what we stand for, right? I know that's not exactly what you asked, but I just wanted to share that as a what we mean by safe space.
Andresa, Liz talks about the multiple hats that women wear, and you have a few of those yourself as a divorcee, as a single mother, as an immigrant. Tell me, do you see those things as obstacles or superpowers?
Well, there are days that I look at this and I the more, self-knowledge and growth, mindset growth, you always try to look at that as your superpowers. But there are days where I cannot just ignore or avoid the heavy burden, right? How I dealt with that that's the difference. How do I look at it? And many women that are married also feel like single moms. And that is, to me, a lot of questions that we can ask ourselves. Is it working for you? Even if you have a husband or a wife or whatever your situation it is. How are you getting the support you need to live life on your own terms? What on your own terms means to you? To me, picking up my child at school and dropping him off at school every single day, it's a win. Yesterday, he's 6 years old and we were having a conversation about bosses. And he's like, "Who is your boss, mommy?" I was like, "Mommy, I am my own boss, honey." Oh, it's like, "What will happen, mommy, if you had another boss?" I was like, "Well, honey, mommy probably wouldn't be able to pick you up from school." And he's like, "Oh, no." Oh, so I want to be my own boss too. I was like, so it's all about the time, right? What do I do with all the hats that I wear? Andresa 2022 wants to wear less and less hats as we grow the company and as we expand. It's all about the delegation and building teams and doing less. And I'm okay doing less. I'm totally okay doing less. I aim for that. I aim for people to do better than me so I can step out. A couple of years ago, you wouldn't hear that at all. You will hear a person that can totally handle everything by myself. I'm smart enough to figure it out by myself. And that's not my vision, my current vision. I feel that I am to the point where I am hanging out with people that are smarter than me. And that's what I want. I want to hire people that are smarter than me, that can do better than me. But I want to live life on my own terms. I want to have coffee and not think about what time it is or what day it is.
And I want to jump in quickly about the relationship that Andresa and I have built and how that's really penetrating, in a sense, our community and our membership. So just to give a quick example of the question you just asked about feeling like you're a single mom, Andresa and I had a conversation in December, very recently, and we're sitting together over dinner. We were doing some traveling, and one thing that Andresa and I pride ourselves on is to be very straight with each other and to be very honest with each other. And I think that's really important as we've created this community, right? We're not just telling each other what we want to hear, which is sometimes nice, but we really need to hear. And we were talking a little bit I was talking about something with my husband, and she goes, Liz, listen, you sound like a single mom, and you're not a single mom. I'm a single mom. You sound like one and you aren't. What is going on? And so we talked a little bit about the roles we have in our household and my husband and I, and honestly, we have revamped our whole way of being in our household because of that conversation. You know, it's time that has saved me in my family because of that conversation, not just because of the conversation, because I did something with what she said, and I really took it to heart, and I thanked her for that. It was not easy to hear, to be perfectly honest. And that is the kind of community we're creating. Women don't need to hear more of what their neighbors and their friends say. Oh, you're doing a great job. Oh, that's too bad. Not that we're like really, really tough on each other, but women need to hear what they need to hear in a supportive and loving way. And that's the community we're building. Intimately and globally, that is what we're about, because women need more of that in their life. They don't just need more friends or social, acquaintances to kind of, quite honestly, tell them what they want to hear. Andresa doesn't always tell me what I want to hear. And I appreciate her for that. And that's the type of environment we're creating in our community.
Andresa, it makes me think about the differences between a Bigger Pockets community per se and InvestHER. It seems to me many real estate communities are all about scale. That's all you hear. Scale, scale, scale. How many doors, how much assets you have in real estate. But it sounds like you guys are really focusing on something slightly different, that the size or the numbers aren't necessarily as important to you in this community.
100%. That's a pet peeve of mine when people ask, how many doors do you own? Or because there is this stigma where you are the value, your self-worth is your experience or how many doors. And we really want to differentiate. You're not the number of doors that you own. You're not the number that you see on your bank account. How does life look to you successfully? What is your success criteria? It might be really different than mine. So we are really having those conversations. And in many conferences that we go in and we speak at, men come to us really touched and they say, whew, now I can really breathe. I don't need to answer those questions when people say, because I just got started and I have 5 properties and I feel ashamed of that. And I'm actually not ashamed of that because I'm living life on my own terms and those are my terms and I'm totally fine with it. It's like, yeah, that's what it's all about. Well, what on your own terms looks like to you? To me, it's freedom of time. Be whatever I want, whenever I want, to work with whomever I want, how often I want. That's my goal. If that's happening, great. But it's just not what we stand for. We stand for mental health, right? I look back, and when I was doing 15 projects at the same time, I was a maniac. I was losing hair. My health was not okay. Were the projects being done on time and we made huge profits? Yes. Do I want to duplicate that? No. Does that serve me right now? No. So I can teach what I learned and how I improve to other people so they don't need to make the same mistakes that I made. And I see women sacrificing, and men too, sacrificing a lot for that. But is that really how you want live life 5 years from now? Do you see yourself doing that right now? So things need to change, and it's separating the person from the behavior. That's pretty simple. Your behavior that you're doing right now will lead you to where you want to be in 5 years. If the answer is no, stop that. Change it. And if you don't know how to do that, talk to other people who already walk the walk. Like, it's about getting the help. I always say to my son, smart people ask for help. Smart people ask for help. It's not a sign of you're weak or you're dumb. You don't know how to figure out. And I think that there's a lot of pressure on men and women to try to figure out by themselves. So they keep that status quo.
We are talking to Liz Faircloth and Andresa Guidelli. They are the creators and owners of the InvestHER podcast and community. We're going to take a short break. I'm Doc G, and this is the Earn and Invest podcast. Hey, everybody. Just a little update on our ground team. The ground team is a chance for you, an Earn and Invest listener, to become part of my team for my book launch of Taking Stock. That's going to be during the first week of August. We already have almost 100 participants. If you sign up to be part of the ground team, you are going to get extra video. You're going to get snapshots into the book early, and you're going to get other content and blogs. Become part of this community. Help me get this book out. Again, we're starting early because the ground team needs to be in place by early August. I hope you check it out. Just go to earnandinvest.com, and right up at the top of the page, there'll be a place for you to learn more about the ground team. Come become part of the Earn and Invest and Taking Stock team. Thanks for listening. Let me reintroduce you. We are talking to Liz Faircloth and Andresa Guidelli. They are the authors of The Only Women in the Room, Knowledge and Inspiration from 20 Successful Real Estate Women Investors. They are also the creators and owners of the InvestHER podcast and community. Liz, let's talk about the community. How big is it? And tell us about who your ideal member is.
Sure. So community-wise, we have, I'll just share with you a little bit about our Facebook community first. So it's a free Facebook community. We have about 10,000 women in that group. Safe space, giving and getting the support that they need. I was sharing a little bit before. We do have meetups across the country. We have a couple in Canada. Our goal is to go global with our meetups in our community, and that's one way we're going to do it. Currently, we have 55 meetups, just close to about 15,000 meetup members that are part of that particular community as well. And then we have a membership, includes mentorship, accountability, and just, straight conversations of giving and getting the support that the women need in terms of masterminding and getting them progressing on their journey of investing. We do that through various ways, but we have about 100 women in that paid membership right now. So, in terms of our ideal women to be part of our community, in terms of our actual community where women can jump in the Facebook community, join a meetup, we created these platforms that anyone on the journey of investing could be part of, whether you're new, starting out, or you're more of an experienced woman. Because quite honestly, we believe that everyone has something to give. And we also believe that everyone has something to get. So even if I've been in this business for 16 years, which I have, I know a lot about multifamily. I'm always learning. I'm always expanding, and so is Andresa. We come from a place of, well, if you're experienced, you don't need to keep building relationships and what have you. In terms of our Strive membership, who we're best serving there is it more experienced women who have 5 to 10 deals under their belt, and they've gotten into the game of investing, and they're looking to scale or grow or just maintain and better manage what they have. So that's who we really particularly serve on for our membership. But our community as a whole, our global community we're building, serves everyone, all women.
Andresa, one thing I noticed as I was looking at your social profiles and LinkedIn is every time I went to a new page, the number of meetups had expanded. So one place it said 40, the next 45, then 50. Tell me about the importance of in-person meetups, why you're building this structure for InvestHER.
Women get to know each other. Women care about the connection. It's different. Networking connections are very, very different, right? So when we talk about connection, what does that really mean? We're not talking about exchanging business cards. We are talking about really understanding this is what I bring to the table. This is what I need. What do you need? What do you bring to the table? What are your goals? Instead of just saying, oh, we both want to rehab. Let's just partner up. Let's just figure out the name of our LLC and go for it. We really encourage deeper conversations to really understand what are your strengths? What do you have to bring to the table? What are your non-negotiables? And how can women really connect and support one another? As Liz says, everybody has something to give and everybody has something to get. our online community has been very supportive, and we have done a lot of events virtually. And because of COVID, we had to shift that a little bit. But the connection, the real connection, nothing substitute in person. And we want to provide that environment where women can have those conversations and also connect with local, right? Because our markets are different. I cannot talk to somebody in Alaska about their market. I really don't understand their market, their uniqueness. So when women start connecting with one another locally, it really creates this momentum, just like they get stronger and more confident to really pull the triggers and move their business and live life on their own terms.
Liz, I'm going to put you on the spot here. When we're talking about communities and meetups, what we're really doing is talking about a place that's safe for people to come and tell their stories. I was wondering if you could recount for us a story or two, and maybe we'll give Andresa the chance also, about someone's story you heard at one of these meetups or in the community that really highlights some of the benefits of the InvestHER platform and community. What kind of stories are people telling? Do any come to mind?
Absolutely. And beyond the actual tangible, women coming together and doing deals together, buying their fifth and sixth properties together. And those we have a long list of just women sharing. Yeah, I'm partnered with her now, and these really cool connections happening, as Andresa was saying. I can remember a time though, as we launched meetups in different areas that are fairly close to us, I was personally Andresa and I were going to all of them just to kind of say hello and share a little bit about the vision of InvestHER and then let the meeting proceed. So this was in a town called Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And I went up there and met with the two leaders. And the meetup leaders are experienced women. They probably have they're not complete newbies, but they're growing their portfolio. Those are the ideal meetup leaders that we tend to have on our team. Great women. And I met beforehand. They were all excited. Women are shuffling in, really neat environment, about 30 women. And something that I always encourage we encourage the women to do is for women to share, this is their first meeting, right? So and I was speaking. So I wasn't like, I'm not going to say anything until they've introduced themselves, at least very, very quickly. And women kind of got up and introduced themselves. And, the two leaders introduced themselves. So before I got going, one other woman came up, got up, and she's probably in her 50s, I would say 50s, 60s. And she got up and she just said, I'm so grateful to be here. I have never been at a networking meeting of just women who want to support each other in creating wealth and building businesses and buying real estate. I just recently went through a divorce, very, very ugly and nasty divorce. And something that my husband always told me is that I should never invest, that it would be too risky and that I probably wouldn't be good at it. I wasn't allowed to take our money and invest. And I've always wanted to do that. And now that I'm free, I'm going to start to invest. So that was very emotional to hear that, and you were like, whoa, that you're making, Andresa and I talk about it, you are making a difference. And that's why we started this community. But to hear this woman that feels finally free to invest is pretty life-changing. And that's the kind of community we're building. So,
Andresa, can you think of a story that sticks out to you during one of these meetups or that you heard through the community?
Yeah, most recent, we are reading a book together on our membership, and many, many times the impact goes beyond real estate. We are really changing the way the conversation happen. We encourage conversation between husbands and wives and their partners and their children. And one woman came to us and she said that she talked to her oldest daughter, who is 25 right now. We were reading a book about vulnerability, and she asked her daughter for forgiveness for everything that she did, for everything that she didn't do, for the support that she didn't do, or for anything. And they have, for the first time, this raw conversation. And I was like, wow, this is really like that. I will never forget that. And she's like, I felt that needed to be done. And then another member said, my mom is 85 years old, and I still want her to say everything you told your daughter. I just had a meeting with her and we were talking, and I don't think I will ever get that from her. So it's beyond real estate, Doc. we really go there. We talk about our issues and we have those support systems. Our main focus is real estate, absolutely. But we don't ignore the other part. And we're really committed on really setting up the next generation for success, for the women to really feel that they're free to do what they feel is the right thing with confidence. And if they want to build a family and stay at home, that's fine too. But we want to give them a choice.
Liz, how do you strike that all-important balance between hardcore networking and providing emotional support? Because they're kind of two different sides of the coin.
Networking is an interesting one because networking is kind of transactional. So we really come from the place of building relationships, right? That's really what networking is, or should be. So we really create an environment for women to build relationships. It's like peeling back a layer of an onion, Doc, right? So me and Andresa, when we met, I don't know if we really, we got deep, but it was a process, right? When you build any sort of relationship. I mean, some people tell you their whole life story when you meet them based on their personality, to be honest. But a lot of people, it takes a little time to peel back the layer of the onion and to further kind of build that relationship. I don't think it's anything different here. The women we're having these conversations with, as Andresa was saying, these are women that we've built a relationship with, right? So there's this common ground you're coming from. We're there to support them holistically, from investing to business, to self-care, whole woman, right? Not just one piece of who we are. Women that you're just meeting for the first time, and supporting, you want to have straight talk with them and be supportive, like I was saying earlier, but at what level that might be and where they are. Sometimes you have to meet people where they are. So, I don't think every conversation Andresa and I get into with women in any part of our community, we go straight there. But it is peeling back the layer of the onion, and we do that in our masterminds, Doc. So we do monthly masterminds with our Strive members, and we go there because that's the purpose of a mastermind, is to say, what's coming up for you? What's the challenge? And then you start to really ask questions, and it's not you having a hard time negotiating. Where else is that showing up for you? Well, I don't know how to even ask for what I want. So it's you just get into that safe space to have those conversations. But women need to be in the arena to have those. I don't think a lot of women, I don't think a lot of people feel comfortable having those conversations because they don't want to deal with it, to be perfectly honest, because it's hard to look at yourself and figure out that for 15 years, you've been carrying around something. I know it's hard for me, the work that I'm doing on myself. So, but that's where we're there to be those cheerleaders and that support and that you got this. And we see you making this happen. We see you buying your 8th, 9th, 10th property and doing it in a way that works for you and doing it with peace and grace and keeping your marriage not only intact, but growing with your spouse, right? Versus waking up and you have a bunch of properties and you have all this money and you don't even know the other person. That doesn't seem like the life I'd want, or not the life that I have.
Andresa, I feel like these times are like no other. Let's talk pandemic. Has the pandemic had unique effects on women when it comes to real estate?
Absolutely. Needless to say, right? We see all the research around how many women have left the workforce to care for their children who are at home. Many questions couples ask, who is going to step back? And when it comes down to earning, whoever earns more goes, or whoever, has the more negotiation power here goes. And then, or you're the mother, you stay home. So I can go on and on with those stereotypes and possible conversations. But what we have seen is that a positive effect too, where women had the time, either because they were laid off or because they were super tired and they really needed some time to think, that they are rethinking their lives and what is working, what is not working, and making those choices. Why not start real estate now? Why not really think about, okay, I have a job, but how can I start building generational wealth on the side? Why not doing this? Or where is this information? Or how can you guys have done this and I didn't know about this? Rethinking the circle that they're a part of. Well, my circle of friends just complain about their bosses and their jobs, and I'm tired and sick and tired of that. So I love them as my friends, but not for that. So it's just a conversation that started. So obviously there was a negative impact on women with a lot of professionally speaking, but I think it was an awakening moment as well for many of them. And then they were seeking places where they can get the support, or where they can see other women that made it possible. And this concept of like having it all, do I want to have it all? It's an option. How about if I don't want to have it all? How about if I want to have it this certain thing today and something else tomorrow? We don't want to put women in boxes too. So it's always a conversation of, what do you want? Oh, I don't know what I want. Well, so let's have the time to discuss it. Let's have a conversation and create that. Let's create a future that works independently of anything. The point here is that let's take all, like, you're free to think, you're free to do everything that you want. Let's build that step by step. You don't need to have the entire plan in front of you for you to take the first step. Do you see the first step? Take the first step. That's all you got to do right now.
Liz, what do you think the downstream effects of the Great Resignation are? Do you think it'll increase women's involvement in real estate?
I do. I think in a lot of ways, whether, again, Andresa was saying, in a lot of ways, whether women were laid off or is their choice, it's going to create like more opportunities for them to really fulfill what they want on their own terms. So I do think it's going to have a positive effect, but it's affecting other pieces of our business. So staffing for our property management companies, or staffing for the construction companies, or all the staffing issues that are happening, labor shortages that are quote unquote happening right now. That has an effect, to your point, in terms of how we're all affected. So, I hope we get back to a cadence of people. There's enough people. We just have to get creative in how to find them and keep them. But in terms of women really taking their ownership back and creating the life they want, yes, I think that's going to have a phenomenal effect on their own terms, because that's what it's about.
Andresa, if you're a woman listening to us right now, or a man who supports a woman, a lot of people struggle with that first step. So obviously they can join the InvestHER community, Facebook page, et cetera. But what's a good way to start if you are at ground zero and you're a woman interested in getting involved in real estate?
Liz and I call that the state of the union. It's really like an internal inventory of a couple of questions that we always ask. What do you have to bring to the table? Is that your skill set? And it does not need to be real estate. It could be, for, like I always say, doctors are great because they need to assess, diagnose, and give an answer, right? It's all about the negotiation with sellers, assess the situation, see what the problem is, and propose a solution. So all the skill sets that you have from your previous jobs and trainings, that's super, super important. Do you have time? How much time do you have? Funding. Some people are not leveraging the equity in their houses or their retirement accounts that they could be investing in real estate. So not necessarily being active, but they can be passive as well. What do they want to do in 5 years? How an ideal week would look like to them? So all of those, it's something that I would say answer by yourself, and then as a couple answer together, and then you start crafting. What do you have to give, and what are the gaps? Oh, I cannot stand construction, so we certainly need to look for people that have experience on that or enjoy that. So when we are using real estate as a tool, right? Does not need to be your full life. Real estate is a tool. So you can have partners where are fulfilling those gaps. I think that if they start with that, it's a great way to kind of like get the ball moving.
Yeah. And so many times, Doc, we've seen in our community with the women that we connect with all the time, they ask the question, which market should I invest in? Should I buy a short-term rental? Seems like a really hot vacation rentals are really hot, especially since the pandemic. Should I get into multifamily? Should I buy a single family home? Like, these are all really, really important questions. Of course, they're great questions. You have to have a strategy, and then you have to, take this step by step to do that. They're just not the first questions. And I think that's where people misstep, is because they're not super clear on what Andresa just So, I'm just said in terms of getting kind of the State of the Union, and they jump in, and then they're working on the single family home, and they're doing it all themselves, and then they're like exhausted and frustrated. Now they got into the game. Kudos to them, but couldn't it have been maybe a little more peaceful had they done a little work up front? And that's really what we stand for. So women can be a little more laser focused and not waste 6 months, 2 years. I wish we had our community when I started. Absolutely wish we had our community. I would have saved us time and money.
And I think that is super essential, because if you get into that single family house and you didn't know your exit strategy, or your lender was not lined up properly, you're going to get burned out and say, listen, I tried, real estate is not for me, I'm out. Right? So what we're encouraging is really like conversations with yourself, with your partner, and then getting to a community in a small circle. It does not need to be the real estate investor. It could be any local community association that you can be part of, and having conversations with others, and rely on professionals. A realtor, a title insurance, talking to several bankers to really understand, so you don't shoot yourself on the foot when things don't go right. You have the right expectations. You know that you're going to face some challenges. You're going to learn from it, and you're going to continue. That's the ultimate goal.
Liz, tell us, how important is cash? I mean, the biggest excuse I always hear when people say, no, I can't get into real estate, it's like, well, I have no money to start with.
I would say, to buy real estate, you need money. It may not be your own money, but someone needs to have money, right? There has to be some sort of, exchange. And they're actually saying that there are other creative ways to finance projects. So my husband and I, at the time, my boyfriend and I started our first deal. We didn't purchase with any of our own money. We didn't have any money to take $30,000 and put it down payment in construction. So we got a loan. We got a loan from my father. So, often there are financing options, but obviously the down payment is important to get into real estate. There are so many creative ways to get into projects. So many projects that we got into, we bought, we renovated, we without our own money. That's how my husband and I built our company, with other people's money. Now, obviously, there's a way to do that, and there's a strategy to doing that, and you need to know what you're doing, and you need to be, educated in the way of how to do that, right? Protecting people's money. The last thing you'd want to do is lose someone's money or make a wrong call. There's other creative options, owner financing, right? Where the owner of a property holds the paper, and you work that out. One of our pod mentors built her business that way, where she would meet with these owners of these small small multis. And that's how she got into these projects without her own money. So there's so many creative ways, Doc, to get into real estate. But again, not knowing what you bring to the table, how to do it, and not all even the answers, but that really get clear is so important initially. But yes, there are so many creative ways, and then there's traditional ways, right? We know a lot of people who literally just take their money and then invest it in their own projects, and that's how they built their process and their business. All different ways, but you got to know there's so many options.
Liz Faircloth and Andresa Guidelli are the proud co-founders of the Real Estate InvestHER community, a platform to empower women to live a financially free and balanced life. They are also the co-hosts of the InvestHER show, which is part of the Bigger Pockets network. Andresa, tell us a little bit about the podcast and how people can reach out to you and Liz if they have questions.
Absolutely. So we are part of Bigger Pockets network. We are in 42 countries right now, and we are interviewing women across the world, across the globe, about their journey. It's not just an inspirational call. We go into break it down for me, the tactics. I want to know, what did you do exactly to make it work? How did you finance it? How did you find it? So I highly recommend you guys to listen to those amazing stories that those women are really sharing their heart on it. And you guys can find us on the realestateInvestHER.com website. You can find all our information over there, on our Instagram, also at the Real Estate InvestHER. And in June, we have our first in-person convention. Is the Investor Con for more than 500 women, and Kim Kiyosaki is going to be our keynote. So we're very excited about this event. It's going to be more than a traditional real estate conference. It's going to be a 2 full day of a transformational experience for women real estate investors.
This has been the Earn and Invest podcast. On behalf of myself, Jordan Grummett, aka Doc G, I'd like to thank Liz Faircloth and Andresa Guidelli. That's a wrap. Have you been considering investing in real estate? If you have, the best place to go to learn about this asset class is the Real Estate and Financial Independence podcast with Coach Carson. Here, Chad, aka the coach, talks about real estate and gives you all the tips and tricks. But not only that, but he has guests on real proof of concept about how to reach financial independence by mastering this tricky asset class. Check him out, Real Estate and Financial Independence podcast with Coach Carson. It is a must listen to if you think real estate is going to be part of your financial holdings. The easiest way to get there is to go to CoachCarson.com. Again, CoachCarson.com. Take a listen. You won't regret it. Awesome. I only have a minute or two, but is there anything we didn't cover you feel like should have been part of this episode?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. No, it was great.
No, it was a wonderful interview. You guys have such good things to say, and I really feel like I got a good feeling for your community and what you do, and I think it's important.
Great. I appreciate you.
Please let us know in this when it comes out. We'll hopefully we can
share more. Yeah.
Yeah, I will. So usually it's about 4 to 6 weeks, and I have to look at the calendar, but we'll probably drop it right at the beginning of Women's History Month.
Awesome.
That'd be great.
And I'll send you a copy a few days before so you can take a listen, as well as I'll eventually send you all the links and images and all that kind of stuff.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you.
It was wonderful meeting you
Pleasure.
too. Also, take care.
Take care now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.